Hey YouTube, RWB Animal here. I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but a couple of months ago, the United States might have elected a president. You guys hear about this? He's the guy with the possible Russian collusion, and the Access Hollywood tape, and the constant tweeting. Ring any bells?
Excuse me? You forgot his racism, climate denial, misogyny, and attacks on the free press.
You are fake news.
There goes my goal of not pissing off half the internet in the first 45 seconds of my first video. But the creepy YouTube gremlin brings up an interesting point. Donald Trump is not a popular president, and as of late May 2017, up to 43% of Americans want him removed from office, according to a recent poll. All of this begs the question, how do you remove a US president from office? Okay, before I go any further, I need to specify that these rules apply to all US presidents and not just Donald Trump. We're going to be using Donald Trump as an example with the rest of this video though, because he's currently president, and as previously stated, a lot of people want him out of here.
Especially me.
That being said, please feel free to apply these rules to any future president you want. And yes, I do mean any future president. There are 5 ways for a president to constitutionally leave office. These include resignation, impeachment, the 25th Amendment, death, and elections. First up, resignation. To date, only one president has ever resigned from office. Nixon's head. Richard Nixon. Nixon resigned on August 9, 1974, because he faced certain impeachment over his Watergate scandal. Could Trump follow a similar path? Donald Trump has admitted that the job is harder than he thought and that he misses his old life. But Donald Trump isn't exactly known as a quitter, so we're going to move on to Nixon's nightmare, number 2, impeachment. Impeachment is the process by which a legislative body formally levels charges against a high office of government. It's important to note that impeachment does not necessarily mean removal from office. U.S. presidents are impeached by the U.S. House of Representatives, which are made up of representatives from the states based on their population. A simple majority of 218 out of 435 congressional representatives is all that is necessary in order to file for impeachment proceedings. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, impeachment is only the first step towards removing a president. Next, a trial is conducted in the Senate, with all the senators acting as a jury, and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court acting as the judge. If 2/3 of the Senate votes guilty, then the president is immediately removed from office. Why is it so complicated? I don't know, ask the Founding Fathers. To date, only 2 presidents have been impeached. Bill couldn't keep it in his pants, Clinton, and Andrew, just because I was part of the union doesn't mean I don't hate black people, Johnson. Richard Nixon also came very close to being impeached before he resigned, as previously mentioned. So what are the chances that Donald Trump will be impeached? To quote another recent president, not bad. Journalists and legal experts have identified several ways that Trump could get himself impeached. The highest profile of which would be the alleged Trump-Russia 2016 election collusion.
You are fake news.
I'm not going to go into the details of the scandal here because it's developing really quickly and whatever I say will probably be out of date really soon. But what's important to talk about is the possible obstruction of justice resulting from the firing of FBI Director James Comey, and other attempts by President Trump to influence or to eliminate the Russia investigation. In fact, this firing actually led to the appointment of a special prosecutor, former FBI Director Robert Mueller, a highly respected law enforcement official by both sides of the aisle, who, according to the Washington Post, is now directly investigating Trump. Obstruction of justice and Russian collusion aside, though, the most interesting argument for impeaching Donald Trump is his violation of the Emoluments Clause of the good old U.S. Constitution. The Emoluments Clause states that no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept of any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatsoever from any king, prince, or foreign state. In other words, it's illegal for any member of the U.S. government to get gifts from a foreign government. Some legal experts and Democratic lawmakers believe that Trump's global business empire violates the Emoluments Clause, or at the very least is a major conflict of interest. But will any of this be enough to impeach President Trump? Well, maybe. Remember how you need a simple majority of the House of Representatives to have impeachment? Well, the current partisan makeup of the House makes that nearly impossible, and that's without even bringing up the Senate. So you need the Democrats and the Republicans to actually work together, and they're not very fond of doing that. That being said, if the investigations in the House by the special prosecutor or in the Senate find anything indisputably incriminating, then Trump will probably be impeached.
But what if Trump hasn't done anything wrong? OMG, how dare you?
Shut up, YouTube gremlin! I regret ever drawing you! What I was getting at is, what if Trump didn't do anything illegal, but he was still unfit to serve? That brings us to the third way a president can leave office, the 25th Amendment. Ratified in 1967, this amendment set up the presidential line of succession. But ignore that, because that is what we call irrelevant info, okay? What matters for this video is the 25th Amendment solution for removing Trump. It states that if the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, then he can be removed by the vice president and a majority of the president's cabinet, by informing the Congress of the president's inability to enact his duties. However, the president can protest his removal, and then, if he does, 2/3 of the Congress must approve his removal. While this mechanism was originally intended to be used when a president gets Alzheimer's or something, looking at you, Reagan, it is broad enough that there doesn't have to be a disease to justify it. As long as the vice president and the cabinet and the Congress go along with it, a president can be removed using this strategy. But can Trump be removed using this strategy? Probably not. Trump has always hired people based on loyalty, so his administration is very loyal to him and would probably not betray him in this way. That leaves us with number 4, death. It is very possible that Trump could die during his first term in office, and get replaced by his vice president, Mike Pence. After all, he is by far our oldest president, and he doesn't exactly have the best eating habits. In total, 8 presidents have died in office, 4 from natural causes, and 4 from assassination. 8 out of 45 presidents have died in office. That is nearly 2 in 10 presidents. Donald Trump could be particularly vulnerable to assassination because of his divisive rhetoric and policies. This is a worst-case scenario because assassination isn't exactly good for democracy. As Bernie Sanders once said after his supporter shot one of his Senate colleagues, violence of any kind is unacceptable in our society. So let's put getting the Grim Reaper to do your dirty work aside and look at number 5, elections. If a president has made it through his first term without being impeached or removed in some other way, then they can only be removed by an election. Presidential elections happen every 4 years, and a president can run for office twice. In 3.5 years, 2020 will arrive, and a mystery candidate could come along and completely destroy Trump. Or Trump could win a second term. There is really no way to know until 2020. But there is one more way to remove a president: term limits. According to the 22nd Amendment of the United States Constitution, a president can only serve 2 terms of 4 years each. So in 8 years, one way or the other, Donald Trump will be gone, and America will live on. Thanks for watching.